Welcome to another video of the Harvard Business Review series. In today's video, we'll be talking about the article What You Don't Know About Making Decisions by David Gargans and Michael Roberto. David and Michael are both world class professors teaching at Harvard University and Banff University, respectively, and are known as leaders in organizational learning, decision making, and strategic leadership. This is a continuation of our previous videos where we talk about Harvard Review articles which have the ability to change a personal and professional life. I can encourage you to watch our previous videos done by Dr. Athar, the last of which was Hidden Traps in Decision Making. Our guest for this show is Dr. Athar Mansoor. Before I pass the mic to him, I just wanted to briefly introduce what the article talks about. So, David and Michael dispel the commonly held myth that decision making is only about getting the desired results. They argue that in addition to this, decision making is about it is an opportunity for the leaders to provide their employees with the exact environment that they need to thrive and live. He talks about that it is structured process making, whereas which is granted critical thinking skills and also collaboration. So this is what the article is. Dr. Athar will talk about in detail. Before I pass on the mic to him, sir, the picture of you, it it looks like you are very young in it. What's the difference?
Oh, Daniyal, yes, you have rightly identified. It's about a 10 years old picture. So when I was there, I went for a course at Harvard. So I took that picture. So yes, I think you have recognized my age. Thank you, Daniyal, for being so vigilant in identifying the change.
I see. I see you looking very young in it. Very good. Sir, so coming to our main topic for today, I have briefly talked about what the article says. But in addition to this, can you please also provide the idea in brief about the article, just to let the viewers know more in detail about what we want to speak about?
Yes, Danyan, surely. The article is an interesting article from the perspective of the importance of decision making in organizational and institutional settings. The opening line of the article is very interesting, and the authors actually write that I'll quote: leaders show their mettle in many ways, setting strategy and motivating people, just to mention two. But above all else, leaders are made or broken by the quality of their decisions, unquote. So this opening line is extremely important to understand that making or breaking of a leader takes place through the quality of his or her decision or the group of people who are in charge of making decisions. So the research by the authors over many years strongly suggests that simply putting leaders get the decision making all wrong. So most of the leaders get it wrong. And that is why they wrote this article. And the reason they have given for this wrong decision making tendency amongst the business leaders is that most business people or business leaders treat decision making as a one time process or one time event, not a process. And and an event in which a discrete choice has to be made at a single point in time, whether they are sitting at a desk, whether they are moderating a meeting, or whether they are staring at or looking at a spreadsheet or any data. So this is what they have identified as a main reason. So now, Daniel, you asked about the idea in brief. The idea in brief is very interesting and very important to understand for all people who want to excel through their higher quality of decision making in business settings or business environment. So basically, they say that this tendency of treating decision making as a single event or an event is wrong. And what leaders need to do is that they need to adopt a process of decision making, which means that decisions should be taken as a process, decision making, and they in fact tell us that the decision making process eventually boils down to two concepts. through which the decision makers, in fact, have to choose of which one of those two adopt in terms of process. So they talk about the process of advocacy and also the process of inquiry. So if the leaders follow either of the two processes, the quality of decision will be eventually influenced. So, in terms of distinguishing between the two processes, which is, I will first delve into the concept of or the notion of advocacy. Advocacy, the authors have argued, is the least productive approach. So, amongst the two, it is the lesser productive. I mean to say, they say it's the least productive, but when we are comparing two, we would say lesser. But of all the approaches, if there are any other approaches which the article doesn't talk about, and there must be other approaches, in comparing these two, it is the lesser of the productive approach. They say in this, whenever decision makers, a single decision maker or a group of decision maker takes this position, they downplay their own position's weakness to boost the chances of winning when they put their the options or the point which has to be discussed amongst different people, and they march into decision making discussion armed for a battle of wills. So the decision making process becomes kind of biased, and they taint that decision making process through their own position, in which they try to downplay the weaknesses of that position so that they eventually win. The consequence of this process is that fractious exchanges take place, which can hinder innovative thinking amongst the people who are part of that decision making circle or who are involved in that decision making. And it also stifles diverse and valuable viewpoints. The other process, which the authors say is a productive process, is the process of inquiry. So, inquiry, they say, is a notion under which you carefully consider a variety of options, and you work with others very smartly and in a very clever manner, in a very positive rather manner, to discover the best solutions, and you also try to stimulate creative thinking rather than suppressing any dissensions, right? So this process actually leads to a better payoff, and the consequence is that eventually the institution or the group of decision makers uh, make high quality decisions that advance a company's or an institution's objectives, and they are able to reach that in a timely and effective manner, and they also it helps in execution of that decision. But they also point out that this process of inquiry is not easy, and because it requires certain things which they call 3 C's, which need to be promoted within the organization. And those 3 C's are conflict, consideration, and closure. So, Daniel, this was the idea in brief about the article.
Perfect, sir. Very explained in very detail. Thank you for that. My second question is, so you talked about the idea in brief. Can you talk about the idea in practice? I say so because from an implementation point of view, it's very important that the readers should understand what the main idea is. So please talk about that.
Yes, surely, Daniel. And that's very important because I stopped my discussion of idea and practice at the 3 C's which which the authors mentioned. So the first of the 3 C's was the conflict. Now, conflict can be destructive and constructive. Constructive conflict has to be promoted within the institution when decision makers want to have a higher quality decision implemented within the first reached. They want to reach a good decision, and then they want to implement that decision. So, conflict has to be promoted, and there are two forms of conflict. One is cognitive conflict, and one is affective conflict. Affective, starting with AFFECTIVE. So the cognitive conflict is related to the substance of the work, and affective conflict is related to it stems from interpersonal friction. So the authors say that the first one, which is the cognitive conflict, is more important. It's very important, and that has to be promoted and encouraged. The second one is destructive. So the first one, cognitive, promotes constructive conflict, whereas the second one promotes destructive conflict. For promoting cognitive conflict, the authors give some suggestions, and I'll quickly touch upon them. First is they request, or they suggest that the decision makers must follow a process of vigorous debate. They should encourage, rather, vigorous debate, because that would lead to asking tough questions, and then responses from the people whom you ask the questions, and then that leads to a discussion which can improve the situation and improve the data or information coming for that decision making. Then they also suggest that the decision maker should prohibit language that triggers defensiveness in people. People should not be discouraged from participating in that process. And if there are contradictory remarks or questions which can remove blame and fault, if they can be introduced, that is very good. For example, you can say, when you are discussing with your peers or subordinates or colleagues as a decision maker, you should say, your arguments make good sense, but let me play devil's advocate here for a moment. This will actually not trigger defensiveness, but the people would remain engaged. So, a third suggestion from the perspective of constructive conflict given by the authors is to break up natural coalitions, which means the author suggests that you need to assign people to tasks without consideration of their traditional loyalties. You should ask people to, with different work, with different interests and different passions or different domains, to come together to work together for this decision making. Fourth suggestion from the constructive conflict perspective is to shift individuals out of well-worn grooves, which means that during decision making, ask people to play functional or managerial roles different from their own. For example, someone can become the CEO as well, or vice president, or deputy CEO, or GM, or head of a division, whereas he or she maybe not in their true role which they are playing within the organization. And lastly, they say that you should be challenging stalemated participants to revisit key information, which is to ask them to examine underlying assumptions or gather more facts so that uncertainties and confusions and skepticisms can be removed. The second C was consideration. And again, in consideration, it is important that you need to gain teams' acceptance and support for a decision making outcome, because decision making is eventually lead to an outcome. And even if you have rejected even if you have rejected their recommendations and you are able to gain acceptance from them, that is a very big win for you as a decision maker, and that is can only be done through consideration. You must, at the very outside of the decision making process, should convey your openness and to new ideas and willingness to indulge into a discussion, to accept different points of views, to avoid and you must avoid indicating that you have already made up your mind, because you have not, but at least so you must have some inclination towards what you brought to the table as the solution to a problem through that decision making. Then you should listen to people attentively, make eye contact, take notes, listen to them patiently, and probe for deeper explanations so that they know that you are interested in what they are bringing for the discussion. And then afterward, when you have reached the decision, explain the rationale behind your decision. The last C is the closure, which is actually the eventual, the final stage in the process. You need to avoid the tendency of deciding too early. Don't jump to conclusions. Don't jump to conclusions very quickly. There is a concept known as satisfice. You need to overcome that concept where the first acceptable solution comes to your table and you can You have the tendency to accept it. You should be worried about dissenters, and you should, take into account that this can lead to unstated objections, which can surface later and prevent cooperative behavior from the people who would be executing your decisions. And then you need to overcome the tendency of deciding too late also, because that can also be seen as something unfair, or that can also be questioned by the people. So this is, Daniel, basically the idea and practice to three C's, which is actually conflict, where you generate good constructive conflict, and then consideration, and finally closure. You are able to reach a higher quality of that decision outcome.
Very informative. News, as you must have heard, a lot of things were discussed. Generally, we assume that leadership is a very straightforward process. It is all about getting results and achieving peak performance. But as Dr. Athar mentioned, it's a very complex process. He talked about the three C's in detail, and also the fact that from an organizational perspective, leaders have a duty to provide their employees with the environment they need for effective decision making process. This includes collaboration, this includes conflict resolution, and it also includes expert decision making. So, all in all, a very informative topic, and we will continue to bring you more videos on these topics, which will help your professional life and help your organization skills go up. Thank you, viewers, for listening to this video. Stay tuned and subscribe to tracks for further videos. Thank you and goodbye.